Hello, everyone. Today I'm going to talk about synchronicity in innovation. With so many new things coming up in today's world, new technologies, for example, generative AI, it's very important to understand what is synchronicity and why it matters. So let's understand what synchronicity is and how it is important in innovation. So, what I'm going to cover in today's presentation are the following topics. I will cover why timing matters, the idea of multiples, strength of weak ties, absorptive capacity, cadences and gates, ecosystem orchestration, open innovation, real options logic, and measurement. So I think these are important. So let's discuss them one by one. Now, why timing and alignment matters? Let's look at this first. So synchronicity is basically purposeful alignment in time across ideas, teams, and ecosystems that accelerates discovery and commercialization. So there has to be an alignment across time over ideas, teams, and ecosystems. And it should be used for commercializing, otherwise it's a waste of time. So what I'm saying here is leaders should create conditions which support this. How can leaders create conditions where valuable coincidences are more likely? So you can also think of synchronicity as alignment of clocks. In innovation, this means when an idea, a technology, and the market all come together at the right moment. So if the technology comes before time, it won't work. And if the customers are not ready for that technology, it doesn't matter. And if you're not able to commercialize it for the right value, then also it's not very important. So if we look at example, Apple's iPod was not the first MP3 player, but its launch synchronized hardware, software, which was iTunes in that case, and a shift in consumer readiness towards digital music. Competitors had similar technology, but lacked synchronization, and that's why there was a problem. And there was no synchronization for them with ecosystem and consumer behavior. That's why I'm saying timing and alignment both are important. So you have to create conditions where it is important, it makes a lot of difference. Ideas, teams, and ecosystem should also come into perfect place for that to matter, and clocks have to be aligned. Why timing is a first-class variable? Let's talk about this. When I'm saying first-class variable, it means that it is very, very important. Even brilliant ideas can fail if the timing is wrong. Consider Google Glass. Google Glass was technologically impressive, but launched before consumers were culturally ready for that. They were not ready for wearable cameras. Contrast that with Zoom's rise during COVID-19. Its features existed before. Zoom was available before, but people were not using it to that extent. But global conditions, because of COVID-19, synchronized demand, bandwidth infrastructure, and remote work adoption. And when the remote work adoption came in, Zoom zoomed into the limelight, so to say. The lesson is timing often decides whether innovation scales or stalls. So I'm saying that it is a first-class variable. It's that important. Now let's look at some evidences of synchronicity at the idea level. Now there's a concept of multiples. I'll talk about that. First, let's talk about some examples. So if you read history, you will find that the idea of calculus was simultaneously invented by Newton and Leibniz. Or for that matter, light bulbs were simultaneously being developed by Edison and Swan. In business, the smartphone is another case. Apple's iPhone, Google's Android, and even Nokia's touch devices all emerged around the same time in 2007. Why? There was a reason for that. Because semiconductors, mobile internet, and touchscreen interfaces matured together. Leaders should track such field readiness. Multiples here, it means that multiple things are happening in the similar space. Multiple things, multiple discoveries, multiple inventions are happening simultaneously at different places. And leaders should track such field readiness. Is that field ready for a change? Is that field ready for adoption of this new idea? So you need to be ready to understand that the field is apt for such a change and for adopting such an improvement which is happening. And you should also look at, are the innovations converging? If that is happening, your idea is going to be successful. Then networks that carry just-in-time knowledge. Now, there is a research paper by Granovetter which talks about strength of weak ties. Now, I'll explain that with an example. For instance, IDEO, the design company. So IDEO designers, they often give examples that they have conversations with people or acquaintances outside their industry. So they talk to musicians, doctors, engineers, people who are not from their background. So this might sometimes lead to timely inspiration. Similarly, Procter & Gamble's Connect Plus Develop. They have a program called Connect Plus Develop, which exploits external weak ties to solve R&D challenges. So P&G talks about they had a problem with the Pringles printing. So Pringles chips that they have. So there was a problem with the printing on the cover of that Pringles chips. And they solved that problem by learning from the inkjet printing industry. So the people who were in the printing industry had better ideas about that, how to solve the problem, and they used that to solve that problem. So this weak ties are pretty strong. So you have to get just-in-time knowledge. For that, you might have to tap people who are outside your industry. You should not shy away from that. Then absorptive capacity. Now, absorptive capacity is an important concept. It is also about organizational capability. Now, Kodak is a cautionary tale. All of you would know that it invented the digital camera in 1975 when there was nothing else. I mean, there was no one else who had the digital camera, but they didn't have the absorptive capacity to pivot from film to digital. They didn't have the capacity. By contrast, IBM successfully absorbed knowledge from universities and startups during the AI revolution, turning Watson into healthcare and finance product line. So absorptive capacity meant that IBM could recognize and integrate external signals faster than laggards. Now, let's go much deeper into absorptive capacity. Now, this term was developed by Cohen and Leventhal in 1990. It means the firm's ability to recognize the value of the new external information, assimilate it into existing knowledge, and apply it commercially. So there are three factors which are important in absorptive capacity. First, you have to value the new external information. It should not gloss over it. You should think that the external information is valid and important. Then you should have processes in place to assimilate that existing knowledge, which is external. And third is you should be able to apply that commercially. If you're not able to apply that commercially, again, it will fall flat. So you might have R&D resources, but just having R&D resources is not good enough. So you have to build organizational routines and processes and expertise that lets you see, or lets the team see and interpret and use that external ideas effectively. Google is a very good example of absorptive capacity. Now, the AI initiatives that Google came up with, they recognized the value. So they looked at academia and they saw that deep learning was happening pretty fast. They looked at the work by Geoffrey Hinton, who was working at University of Toronto in deep learning. So based on that, they realized the importance, and then they acquired DeepMind, which is a UK-based AI startup. And you know what Google DeepMind did later on, right? So they could apply reinforcement learning for search, for cloud and autonomous systems. And after acquiring DeepMind, Google created structures where DeepMind scientists collaborated with Google Brain and product teams. So this allowed Google to integrate external breakthroughs. AlphaGo used reinforced learning techniques with internal data, cloud infrastructure, and applications like YouTube. And all these things led to Google getting into Google Translate, coming up with Google Translate, which later on became a big thing for them. So once they integrated these deep learning techniques, which they understood from outside, they assimilated into their teams, and which led to Google Translate's improvement. Similarly, Google Photos use advanced image recognition to offer auto tagging. Google Cloud AI APIs monetize these capabilities for enterprises. So all these things led to a higher absorptive capacity for Google. So we should keep an eye on this organizational capability. Then comes process design, cadences, and gates. And I know that all of you would be aware of this. So agile methods are good as a process design, and they have cadences and gates. So this illustrates synchronicity. 2-week sprints align with fast-moving customer requirements. If customer requirements changes slightly or customer is not happy with the changes made, then there's a problem and your product might fall flat and the features might not be appealing to the customers. So 2-week sprints, and then you have quarterly releases, quarterly release trains. So they align with enterprise buyers' procurement cycles. So every quarter, if the client is buying products, then you should release them every quarter, right? So an example is Atlassian, who makes Jira. It synchronizes the feature releases with global customer conferences for maximum impact. Whenever global customer conferences happen, Jira comes up, Atlassian comes up with a new feature in Jira. This coupling of cadences with customer events increases adoption velocity. So they are more likely to try, customers are more likely to try if these new features are introduced to them in customer conferences. So that is another point which is important. Then ecosystem orchestration, which is important, aligning complements. Now, Tesla supercharger rollout synchronized EV adoption. So if you have EV and you don't have superchargers, then again, it's a problem. If you don't have infrastructure, it becomes a great problem. So by orchestrating batteries, charging stations, and software updates together, Tesla created an ecosystem that synchronized value for drivers, regulators, and partners. Another case for ecosystem orchestration will be Microsoft synchronizes its Azure cloud expansion with partner ecosystem, consulting firms, ISVs, so that when enterprise moved, complements were ready. So entire ecosystem should be ready. Otherwise, there will be lacuna, there will be lacks somewhere. Open innovation as a synchronizer. Open innovation, getting ideas from the public, that is important. Lego's ideas platform is a perfect case. So they have crowdsourced designs. When they crowdsourced designs, they knew that what are the customers wanting, and they did the product launches based on the customer inputs, based on this product development. The Saturn V rocket set was fan submitted and launched when global interest in space exploration spiked, 50th Apollo anniversary. By opening up, Lego reduced timing risk, so they reduced the timing risk. Products aligned with cultural events and market sentiment. They knew that the customers would want that because they are talking about it. Moving on, strategic timing choices. There's something called real options logic, which Amazon follows. So it keeps its options open. It incubated AWS internally before the market fully developed for cloud. If they had launched it for the public earlier, they would have not succeeded so much. Once startups began needing scalable infrastructure, Amazon expanded rapidly. So this is the real options approach. Experiment early, scale when conditions synchronize. So it is different or opposite to what firms like Blockbuster did. Blockbuster delayed digital options and lost to Netflix. So Blockbuster, they continued with the physical options and they delayed the digital options, and which led to better market share for Netflix. Now, how do you measure synchronicity? So there can be metrics for synchronicity. Companies do track synchronicity. Pharmaceutical firms measure time to co-approval of drug and companion diagnostics. So if the drug is ready for launch, but there are no diagnostic tests available or mass diagnostic tests are not available, then also it's a recipe for failure. A drug without the test is useless. So they monitor synchronization. In consumer tech, gaming console makers like Sony and Microsoft track percentage of third-party launch titles ready by release date. So if they are good release in September, they also look at the third-party titles. What percentage of third-party titles will be ready for September launch? Otherwise, they fine-tune their launches so that more titles are available from the third party. Otherwise, the adoption of hardware will lag. That's another problem there. Now, there are some more examples. Let's go back to the iPhone launch in 2007. So Apple synchronized multiple complements: the iTunes ecosystem, multi-touch screen supply chain, and partnerships with AT&T for data plans in the US, right? By contrast, Nokia had strong hardware but lacked synchronized app stores and carrier relationships. Nokia didn't have carrier relationships with people like AT&T, which led to the decline, which was one of the factors for the decline. The contrast illustrates how synchronicity, not raw R&D. So that's why synchronicity is important, which could lead to sustainable advantage, Design patterns. So a practical design pattern, what SAP does with its partner, SAP does with its partner ecosystem. So SAP publishes detailed roadmaps. So partners, that means consultants, system integrators, app developers align releases with SAP's ERP updates. So they plan it that way. This reduces mismatch and ensures complements are ready on day one. It's a deliberate way to create synchronicity rather than relying on chance. So it's similar to matching the ecosystem, but if you plan it carefully, then everything will come together and that will make the launch more successful. That will lead to more retention of customers, better retention of customers, and acquiring new customers or acquisition of new customers. Now, there are problems with over-synchronization. Over-synchronization can also backfire. So that balance has to be maintained. BlackBerry synchronized too rigidly with enterprise IT cycles and missed consumer adoption of smartphones. So if you over-synchronize in one area of a business, that might lead to lagging in another area. So they synchronize more with the enterprise IT systems and consumer adoption, that's why lag. So similarly, Intel's tick-tock cadence worked for years, but became brittle when Moore's law slowed. This slightly reduced flexibility to experiment. Leaders must balance synchrony with exploratory, Slack-like Google's 20% time, which deliberately creates temporal asynchrony for creativity. So leaders must balance synchrony with exploratory Slack, that is free time for their employees so that they can think up new ideas and they can launch successful new products or features. Now, companies can think of practical 90-day plan. You can have a simple pilot. For example, what Spotify does, it aligns product release calendars with major music industry events like Grammy Awards, big album launches. In 90 days, leaders can identify one anchor event in their industry and align internal cadences to it. Simultaneously, set up a week-tie brokerage group, perhaps cross-functional innovation council that meets monthly to surface opportunities for synchrony. So if you do this 90-day planning and you link it to some major event, then you can also get feedback on the features or feedback on the products. And then you can improve that and you can incorporate the changes that are suggested by the people in the event. So what are the key takeaways from this? Synchronicity is not mystical. Synchronicity in innovation is not mystical. It is engineered. Leaders can design conditions for breakthroughs by synchronizing timing across technologies, markets, and partners. The iPod, iPhone, AWS, and Tesla, all examples of this principle. The challenge is balancing synchrony to seize windows with flexibility to keep exploring. So both the things are there. So we need to be careful about that. Don't over synchronize. Leave some time for thinking up as well. So that's where I'll end my presentation. Thank you. Any questions?